Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us today for our multi-cloud live stream. Just a reminder, if you are joining us, that these are taking place every week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we're featuring new speakers and topics. The recordings are also hosted on our VMware Cloud YouTube channel, so you can check those out on demand and see what's coming up next. Make sure you subscribe so that you can get those alerts coming in and make sure you don't miss anything that is coming through. Today, we are excited to have Satya with David in here with me today. So Satya, if you don't mind just introducing yourself and providing an overview of what we'll be talking about today.
Hey, and Satya, tell us also where you live and what time it is.
Right. Yeah, first of all, thank you for the opportunity, Lauren and David. I really appreciate it. So actually, I'm based out of Sydney, Australia. And here it is 3 a.m. and I'm super excited, actually, to be with you guys today for this session. So
it's great that you're super excited at 3 a.m. I don't want to see you at 3 p.m.
I know, right? So yeah, today's session we will be just talking about VMware's multi-cloud, portfolio and what we have, and we will touch on Azure VMware Solution, Google Cloud VMware Engine, and VMware Cloud on AWS today, and probably we'll also have a look on the console and how to deploy these clouds in VMware Cloud.
Perfect. Well, we'll let you take it away. And as a final reminder, everyone, if you have any questions, please feel free to submit those into the chat from wherever you're watching, and we'll make sure we address those during the call.
Okay, thank you.
And bonus points if you're watching from Australia.
Yeah, let us know where you're watching from if you can top the time.
That would be great. All right, let's get started. So talking about VMware Cloud, right? So VMware, we want to be the Switzerland. So this small map here, this country is a Switzerland. So we want to be Switzerland. That means we want to be agnostic in the cloud. So we now, VMware can run on any of these clouds, as you can see here, right? So every cloud has its own strength. It has its own special use cases or its own speciality. In many cases, organizations may be aligned to a particular cloud and they may be already using it, or they may have massive amount of data sitting in there or applications sitting in there, and they may be somehow talking to that application from your VMware workloads. So with VMware Cloud, what is possible now is we can actually run VMware Cloud on any of this cloud, whether it is Google Cloud. In Google Cloud, VMware Cloud is known as Google Cloud VMware Engine. In Azure, Microsoft Azure is called Azure VMware Solution. In AWS, it is called VMware Cloud in AWS, which is our own managed and sold service, right? And so on with other cloud providers. So what that means is you can host a VMware-based workload on any of these clouds. And it's up to you how you want to run it, whether you want to run it Google or Microsoft Azure. So choice and flexibility is there for our customers and partners. And if needed, they can actually migrate those workloads even in between clouds. So that potential, that capability is now today with VMware Cloud. So as you can see here at the bottom, this is the infrastructure layer where all of the cloud sits. So today it is all multi-cloud now, right? Multi-cloud environment. As you can see, all these big hyperscalers, big public cloud providers as an infrastructure layer. And as we have our VMware Cloud running on this infrastructure, you can actually start hosting various workload in there in the form of virtual machines or containers or Kubernetes, right? So all of these form factors are supported in VMware Cloud. What it also means is that if you already have tons of VMware workloads sitting on-prem or maybe one cloud, you can actually consistently operate there in terms of automation, in terms of security, governance, compliance, and even the container management. All of that can be done consistently now on all of the VMware Cloud. So what that means is if you have a workforce who are great with the VMware technology stack, you do not need to reskill them, and they can use VMware Cloud as is and continue using your same day-to operations and tools as you are using, right? So process, people, and technology all remains consistent, and there is no need to re-engineer or reskill your workforce. So with this infrastructure, we support your existing apps as well as modern apps. So usually when you say modern apps, it is like containers or in the form of microservices, and also with Kubernetes, right, for orchestration. So all of that is supported with VMware, right, on any cloud again. So what that gives is consistent infrastructure, consistent operation, and consistent delivery model. So this is a bit of context setting around VMware Cloud.
Yeah, just to add to that, because this is great, really highlighting the value prop. But sort of you can move any traditional app anywhere you want, and often that gives you the opportunity then to extend that app by plugging directly into the cloud services from that provider, and then you can build with VMware modern apps that can run on any cloud, and then you can also, that can be supported on the same underlying platform, because vSphere can support both traditional apps and modern apps. So it's like, I think it's a good picture always to show that how the whole thing comes together, which is basically, it goes back to the, well, we say a lot, which is any app on any cloud, basically any app type really is probably more more precise, right?
Absolutely, David. So that's exactly what VMware Cloud is now offering to our customers and partners, right? So as you can see on the screen, consistent development model, consistent operations, whatever they're already using, the tooling, the skill set, all remains the same.
Yep, cool.
Okay, so now what we are trying to touch today is a bit of infrastructure layer in a multi-cloud environment. So we will be actually going to Azure VMware Solution portal, Azure portal, and then we will see how it is actually built or deployed. So for any SDDC or private cloud, as it is called in Azure VMware Solution, what we need is some IP addresses, right? So we need to make sure that we have certain IP address ranges ready, and also IP address range that you will be using on your Azure VNet. So these IP addresses should not be overlapping, right? And since we are going to do this in multiple cloud environments, we will need to have the similar kind of sets of IP addresses for different clouds. So here is a snapshot of how AVS environment will look like. In Google Cloud VMware Engine, we will be trying to deploy an SDDC with these IP ranges again. So you have SDDC infrastructure range with certain IP range. As for SDDC workload, there's another IP range, and VPC network, which is Google's native SDN, software-defined network, right? So for that also, we have a separate IP range. And as you can notice here, all of these IP addresses are actually not overlapping. So here, in terms of VMware Cloud and AWS, we will have similar kind of IP ranges, but again, it's not overlapping, right? So all this infrastructure will have its own range of IP addresses. So with that said, let me actually move on to Azure VMware Solution, actually in Azure portal, and see how it looks like and how we would be deploying this in Azure portal, right? So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip out of that, and I'll go to my Firefox browser. So Azure is a native offering from Microsoft Azure. It is sold, operated, and managed by Microsoft, so it is available through Azure portal, right? You can see here I'm actually logged on to portal.azure.com, which is Azure portal, and you can actually go to the menu bar here, or Hamburg menu, as we call it, and you can see Azure VMware Solution sitting together with many of our other interesting Azure services, right? So if you want to go to Azure VMware Solution, just click in here. The other way to do that is to just search here. We can just search it as well. In my portal, I already have 2 SDDCs deployed, or private cloud deployed. Let's click on one of them. So this is already deployed. I have already deployed this SDDC. We'll walk through on this one in a bit, but let's actually try to go and see how it is created. So to create AVS solution, we just click on create here. And like I said earlier, it will start asking us a few questions around IP addressing and names, etc. Let's go through that process. So I can go to basic here, And what I can do here is select the subscription. So in Azure, there is a concept of subscription. So we will have to actually select the subscription where I want to spin up that private cloud, right? So we don't call it SDDC here, we call it private cloud, as I said earlier. And resource group. So a resource group is another concept here where certain resources are actually kept together. Now, a disclaimer here is with my current subscription, we have already used up the quota for my SDDC. That is why it is saying that, hey, you don't have quota available. If you want to raise the quota for the host or SDDC host, we have to create a ticket, a subscription ticket for that subscription, and then Azure support will actually allow us to spin more SDDCs. So for this demonstration purpose, I'll just go through the steps, but I'm going to cancel out from creating it because it won't allow me to create because I don't have enough quota to create the SDDC. But I'll run through the steps required to deploy Azure VMware Solution.
Hey, Sajid, do you know how long generally it takes to then once you request it to get it set up, to get a new resources provision?
Yeah, very good point. So if I click on this link here, what actually Azure documentation say is it will actually step you through the support request, right? And they also say here to your answer to your question is here. It can take up to 5 business days to allocate hosts. So
you do have to plan a bit to make sure that if you really have something coming up and you're going to have to add capacity, and that's in the host. It's not specific to VMs, right? That's just having another host available to actually have VMs. So you might have plenty of capacity, but if you want to create a separate new host environment where you're going to set up VMs separately, then you need to plan for it.
100% correct. Yeah. So usually, like this Azure VMware hosts are bare metal instances. So people don't spin up and spin down every day like that, right?
Yeah.
So that is why. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to make just it's a great point. You may have plenty of VM capacity available in your existing host, but if you want a new separate host because it's like a new group or something, and they want to be on the separate host, then you have to plan for it.
Yeah. Exactly. So in this step, let's just go run through this step, right? So he's asking for a resource name. I'll just say AVS private cloud. I'll just write in a short form. Then he will ask you, hey, what reason do you want to host this SDDC, right? So there are multiple reasons that you can launch your private cloud in. I'm going to keep it at US East or East US. So host size, it's not going to give me anything because I don't have any quota. If I had enough quota, it will allow me to choose the host here, right? That is why it is saying size of host nothing. Otherwise, it will just ask me to select the size. It's usually the model of the AVS host, but at the moment it's blank. Like I said, we don't have quota, right?
Yeah.
In AVS at the moment, the minimum number of hosts to spin up an SDDC or private cloud is 3. So minimum is 3. So it is, by default set at 3. If I had the quota, I could actually increase and say, hey, I want to, spin up 6 hosts. I could do that. Now, CIDR block is the address range I spoke about earlier. So this has to be carefully planned because once you spin up SDDC or private cloud, you cannot change it, right? So that's why we have to very, very carefully plan these things. So here, I'll be just using this IP address, which is 10.21.0.0/16 block. And I'll just go here and click on next, right?
And just that last point, if you needed to change it, you could create another environment, right? So you could just
correct.
If for instance you're networking, so that's the beauty of this stuff. You're not locked in. I mean, you can't change this one, but you could create another one basically on the But that's always the issue is like you do have to plan the network a layer very carefully, no matter what you're doing, so you can support the level of interconnectivity and sort of the scenarios that you need to support. And that's true across the board with all the different scenarios.
100%. And the other thing is that, like I said earlier, no overlapping ranges. If you are using this IP range, for example, in on-prem or maybe your Azure VNet, we should not be using it, right? Otherwise, it will cause all kinds of problems. So here, I'm going to use that, and then I'm going to go to next step, which is tagging. Tagging is really good, in terms of identifying the resources. looks like we have already tagged so many things in here. For now, I'm just going to say purpose of this this environment. I'll say just production. You may also have things like who is the owner or who who spun up this thing, right? I can just put my name there. And the next step is to review and create. But when I click here, I would not be able to do it because the validation is failing because I don't have quota, right? So basically, if I had the quota and I had the right number of hosts that I had specified earlier, I would be able to click on create here. Now, one thing I want to mention to our viewer is we have recently published a blog article that actually goes through step by step on how to create that, the one that I showed you just before. And actually, you can see in the screen that this part was missing earlier, right? So you would be able to see, these parts and just follow through. So I think, Lauren, you will be providing the link to this document, right? To our viewers?
Yep. It's on the screen right now, and we'll be sure to add it into the description on YouTube, so you can check that out yourself. But yeah, exactly. If you want to reference this blog, thank you, Satya, for putting it together. You can see all of this information in written format as well.
Yeah, and there is a video.
I'm sorry. Oh, great! So the video too to walk through the whole thing. It's awesome.
Yes, correct.
The 3 hosts on Azure, is that, I know it's 3 host limit on AWS, I think it was. Is it still the 3 host limit on AWS as well when you set that up?
Yes, so for AWS, we will actually quickly run through AWS if we have enough time today. and for AWS, the answer is today we can run 1 host SDDC for test.
Okay, 1 host SDDC.
Yeah, 1 host for test and dev. And for like a production workload, we also have 2 host SDDC.
Okay, cool. It's great.
So I'm going to cancel out of this one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Azure VMware Solution, and I'll quickly show how a fully deployed SDDC or private cloud looks like, right? So I have actually clicked on one of our SDDC, which has already been deployed, MCA ABS Demo SDDC. This is in fact the SDDC that you will see in the video that we have deployed. So this is the SDDC. And you can see the address block we used earlier. So it will come up like this. And what Azure automatically does, it actually carves out multiple IP address ranges for different purposes, right? You can see various information in here. You can see information of location, where it was created, what resource group, subscription ID, tags. So there was no tag in here, it looks like. Number of hosts on this SDDC, right? So one important thing I want to show you here is called identity. So this is the identity or your username and password for your vCenter credentials, your vCenter web URL, and also NSXT manager credentials, right? So with Azure, what comes together with Azure VMware Solution is your vCenter server to manage vSphere, NSXT manager to manage your NSX environment, and also because it is powered by VCF, VMware Cloud Foundation, so vSAN is also there, right? So vSAN, vSphere, and NSXT. Let me just quickly try to connect to this VMware vCenter and see how it looks like. I'm going to click here, and then let's say open link in new tab. I'm going to also copy this username and also password in a bit. So here I have opened that in a new tab. It's the same vCenter client, right? The same one that you know, you love, and you are already using it on-prem. Is the same vCenter console. My username and password are cached here, so I'm just gonna use that. And that's it. So this is the vCenter server. Yes, David?
Oh no, I was going to say, I said right, and so basically it's the same experience as if you were running it on the data center side, right? It's like it looks the same, feels the same, does the same things.
Yeah, day-to operation consistency, right? So you don't have to learn anything; it's the same thing.
Right. Yeah, especially for our teams that are used to operating in this way, it could be an easier, transition into the cloud in that way, not just from your technology standpoint, but also from your people and your processes standpoint.
Absolutely, Lauren. Absolutely. So you can see here the FQDN, the URL for this SDDC is these some random numbers, and then you can see East US AVS Azure.com. It tells us that this is a private cloud environment in AVS, right? Now, in the interest of time, I'm going to quickly demo the same thing on GCVE as well. How does that sound?
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm actually logged on to my Google Cloud portal. So again, this is Google's first-party solution. Google sells, they operate, and they manage it, right? And they also support it. So VMware Engine is right on top here. So it is their native cloud offering. So if I click on VMware Cloud, VMware Engine, Google Cloud VMware Engine, it will bring me to another console where we can do similar sort of thing that we saw earlier in AVS. But again, this is Google's environment, so it will be a little bit different. In here, I have the same constraint here. I don't have enough quota. So if I try to go and spin up the resource, it's going to tell me the similar kind of thing. Let's go to Home, View Private Cloud. Again, the term here is private cloud. They don't call it SDDC, private cloud, right? Now you can see here, I have one SDDC already here, one cluster, 3 hosts, and this is actually located in US West 2. If I want to spin up another SDDC, I'll just go here and click on New Private Cloud. Now, same deal here, test GCVE. It asks us where you want to create it. So for my project in Google, we call it project. For my project, I only have 2 options available here. Let's just go with the first one. This is the node type, the ESXi host. Again, this is a bare metal instance that actually is in Google, right? And you can see the capacity here. Now, again, here, because I don't have the quota, it says you have 0 quota remaining, similar kind of thing, right? So if you click on this one, Google will tell you how to request for quota. So here, this knowledge base article tells you how to request for quota. All right. So I'm not going to go there. But for this demo, all I needed to do, if I had enough quota, was to select the node count. And then, again, the CIDR range here, right? So here, it is actually specifying what kind of CIDR range I want. I would just specify the CIDR range here. And again, same thing with the H6 deployment, another CIDR range, and review and create, right? And it will try to create it. One thing about Google is we can fast provision SDDCs or private cloud in Google. So if fast provision is available for us, we can actually spin up the SDDC or private cloud within 30 to 45 minutes. So there is a fast provisioning. Any questions here?
No, I think it's great. I think it's great that I think there's kind of takeaway is that when you're setting these up, you are working within the native environment and the native console of the cloud you're going to be targeting. So and that makes sense, right? It's a service of the cloud you're targeting, right? Just like all kinds of other things, and it's just a different service available on that cloud. But then once that's set up, then you have the ability, if you're the virtual administrator, to manage it all as if it were a single VMware environment, basically, right? The same as if you were running it in your own premise on data center, because it's like you're indifferent to what that underlying infrastructure looks like. You just care about the VMs you can create. And I think then one thing that's sort of key to reinforce is that then if you're running, say, a mixed environment of traditional apps and containers, then you can deploy that container infrastructure, Kubernetes, effectively right on top of that. And so now you can run both VMs and containers side by side, because most containers run on VMs anyway. So it's like you're running your VMs, you're running containers on top of that. And then the added benefit is if you're the administrator for that environment, you can use that same vCenter to manage both that VM infrastructure and that Kubernetes infrastructure, because they're integrated. So that sort of brings everything together. So now you may be on Google because you want access to some cloud services there. And so you're running your containers there and you're connecting into those services. and you're also running traditional apps side by side with it, and it's all one environment. So you get tremendous skill leverage, right? It's like,
Absolutely.
You don't have the teams responsible for that, for that virtual infrastructure, whether you're on the cloud or you're in the data center, are using everything the same, basically, right? No matter what cloud is involved.
Yeah, so that is the beauty of VMware Cloud, right? As we spoke earlier, that is the beauty of VMware Cloud. Now, in this screen, you can see, this is actually my existing SDDC. What I did was I just clicked on this private cloud here, and then it brought me to this screen here, right? Now, in here, you can see the name of the SDDC. If you want to log on to vCenter like we did earlier on ABS, we can do that. So you click on view, and it will give you the username and password for that vCenter admin. Now, in my case, let's just have a quick look on how it looks again, right? So I clicked on launch vSphere client. Again, same thing, same vSphere username, the same login console, right? Now I'm logging on here. And there we go. Same vCenter console.
Yeah. And you just have this happens to be the environment running on Google, right?
Absolutely, right? So again, same deal, no skilling, just use it as you would use your on-prem environment. So I'm not sure how much time we got remaining. Otherwise,
no, I think we're probably good. I mean, I know we would do the same thing on AWS and show sort of like what does it look like to set up that SDDC. There's a ton of videos on VMC on VMware Cloud and AWS, so it's probably the most seen area. So it was great to focus on some other clouds that we don't see as much of. I think it's great. I think this is awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So actually, in this article, we have spun up three SDDCs, including the VMware Cloud and AWS. And again, there's a video here. Just have a watch. You will see the whole thing in the video as well as in this article.
I think it's great. I think you did a great job demonstrating sort of what that experience looks like. And again, I think the main thing is when you're setting up an environment, you're in that console of the cloud you're on, and that makes sense. It's a service offered by them. And then when you're running things, but you're just sort of sitting in the VMware environment, and you just have access to all these different clouds that can be part of your environment. So it's and you get, and again, we talked about how then bring together the both modern apps and traditional apps in those environments as well.
And the beauty of this environment is, we have all the connections to all the environments. So if there was a use case where I wanted to use a virtual machine from one cloud to another, we could do that as well. But again, we don't have that time today, maybe some other time.
Yeah, I think let's set up a time to do that, which again shows sort of sliding VMs across the different environments and just how easy that is with HCX and some other things. I think that's what we should do in another one. Sort of like we'll just pick up on this. Hey, we've now established the SDDC on 3 different clouds, and now we're sort of in the operational phase, and what kinds of things can we do? And I think the main point is, in some ways it's kind of boring because it's like, and it looks the same, but that's the point, right? It is the same. You don't have to learn something completely different every time.
So we make really complex thing really boring, right? With this kind of operation.
Simple, not boring.
There is a question here, and I don't know the answer. And we may not know this on it, but around the data transfer, that sort of thing. What does that look like? This is tied really to this issue of data. It can be expensive on an egress side. And are there any special arrangements when we're transferring data across from on-premise to these clouds? I'm not sure I know the answer myself, quite frankly.
So the answer for that, the answer for that is, egress. Always, customers will always pay the egress, right? So if you are traversing through, for example, Express Route or Direct Connect or Google Interconnect, the egress costs are cheaper if you are using that kind of direct line, right? Those kind of Express Route. If you have to, if you are transiting outside or egressing outside using internet, usually that will be expensive. But regardless whether you are using internet or Direct Connect or Express Route or Google Interconnect, right? There will be some egress charge. Yeah.
So there's nothing special about it. It's like if you're moving data out of the cloud, all the same rules apply, generally speaking, right? You're still, because that's sort of bound by the provider and what they charge for data transfer and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Okay. I think this gives you lots of options, but to think about, because you can minimize a lot of data transfer by being able to use the specific cloud where you want to do all the transactions, and then only transfer data when necessary between environments, basically, right?
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. So one thing I forgot to mention is, if you are, for example, let's just take an example of AVS. If you are using an AVS, your Azure VMware Solution environment, and your virtual machines are sitting in there, and you want to consume, for example, SQL Server, which is a PaaS service from Microsoft, or Azure Blob Storage, and you want to consume that within that same region, same AZ, right? Same availability zone from your Azure VMware Solution VM, and anything sitting on your VNet in Azure, like any services from Azure. If it's on the same region, same AZ, there will be no egress charge. There will be no data transfer charges. So that is one big value prop of having VMware workloads sitting really, really, close to those interesting services that our cloud providers can offer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Got it.
Okay, cool. I think it was great. I think it was good, really good demo. Thanks so much for doing this today, and thanks very much for being up at 3 a.m. to do this with us. And
no problem.
We're happy to have you come back and do the part 2 to talk about sort of moving data, moving some of the VMs around, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
but it'll be at 3 a.m. too.
No problem. We can do that anytime, David and Lauren. Thank you for the opportunity. Right? Let's plan for the workload mobility demo one day. Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. It was great.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. And make sure. We'll hope to see you next time. And you can make sure you subscribe to the channel too to check them out on demand and what's coming up next. So
one more comment for Satya, which is thank God it's Friday for you.
Oh yeah,
so you can sleep late tomorrow. I mean, it's actually Saturday now, so
there you go.
Sleep late. Hopefully.
Yeah, it's Friday morning for me. Okay, thank you again, Lauren and David. Really appreciate it, and thanks to all the attendees for joining us.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.